I don't find with the albums now that it's a real rush to get them done. I have found over the last couple of years that we've had a lot of good songs, and we've ended up in the last two albums with 15 songs each album, and it's up to us to get rid of 5 of them, and they just end up in the can someplace. It's kind of a nice position to be in. I would have to give most of the credit for the song selection to Jim Ed. On some albums, I contribute a little more. On others, just depends on the material that comes to me. But so much of the material over the last 2 years that has been directed to me is redirected to him. And because I can trust him completely. Our tastes are very similar, and so I can... But I get a lot of tapes on the road that I take, and there are tapes that come to the office that I listen to, but most of the stuff is redirected to him. If I hear a song that comes directly to me, I usually know if it's good or not, and I know also that he is going to like it, or that is in most cases. I can't remember ever really having to talk him. Maybe in one song in all of our years of collaboration have I had to really talk him into a song. And maybe 1 or 2 songs he's talked me into. But even at that, I was right on the edge anyway of wanting to do it. You know, sometimes you need somebody just to push you over the edge, and he'll do that. It's very difficult for someone like myself right now with the charts as they are to know what to record. Now there are lots of good songs, but whether anyone's going to listen to them or not, I don't know. I know country radio is playing some good music and adult contemporary is playing some good music, but the rest of it, it's lost. So somebody like myself just doesn't fit into that kind of thing. So when you come to do an album, you don't quite know what to do, whether to record some of that stuff or whether to look for the good music. And actually, I'll always look for the good music. You're looking for that magical song. You're looking for a You Needed Me. You're looking for a Snowbird. And those are few and far between. They don't happen that often. I feel fortunate in having had just a couple of them. I was 2 albums behind for Capitol Records. I had decided to take time off and have a baby and stay at home for a while, and they started to put some pressure on me, and I didn't have a record producer and owed them 2 albums, and so I started listening to tapes. I mean, there were piles and piles of tapes that had piled up over a year, and I had boxes and boxes of them, and I started to look for a producer. And Leonard Rambo, my manager, and myself just started to talk to people. We had a few people come to Toronto, and then he met, I believe Leonard met Jim Ed. Jim Ed was working with the Eagles in England, and he met him there. And we got together. It was on the set of the Midnight Special. I believe I was hosting the Midnight Special or something, and he came by, and we had a chat. And I liked him right away. I mean, he knew all my records. He knew what he wanted to do if I decided to go with him. He wanted to go back to basics and start from there. And I had the song. I had You Needed Me in my hot little hands, and just took off from there. The relationship is better now than it's ever been because we know each other better. No one assumes, or we really discuss things, talk things over, so we know where each other stand. We know how we work together in the studio. It's a very comfortable relationship. Unfortunately, this is our last album together, at least for the time being, because Jim Ed is now a vice president with Warner Brothers, and can only produce, under his contract, can only produce Warner Brothers acts. So we're saying goodbye for a while, which I feel kind of bad about, but maybe it's time that all of us had a change. Well, I think the duet on Nobody Loves Me Like You Do came out very strong. You know, when you sit down and listen to an album, maybe a month after you've done it. And that's what I try to do. I try not to listen to it after I finished it, so that possibly after a month I can be a bit objective. And I sat down and I listened, and the song that really jumped out at me was Nobody Loves Me Like You Do. Not only because it's a really good song, but it's such a universal sentiment. I think the voices match very nicely, and I don't know. It's just, of course, I'm in love with Dave Loggins' voice anyway, so I sit down and am terribly enamored by just listening to him. I've almost avoided doing duets because there have been so many of them, and I said, I don't want to do it just for the sake of doing it. And this song came up, and I said, oh my goodness, who will we get? Well, there was no doubt in my mind. I know who I've wanted to sing a duet with for a long time. But of course, people in the business, like management, agents, record companies, would prefer that you find somebody with a higher profile. Dave Loggins had a hit record with Please Come to Boston in 1974, 73, somewhere like that. And no one really has heard of him since as an artist. That was a big hit record, #1 hit for him. And since then he's been writing a lot of songs and had a lot of hit country songs. But as an artist, he's sort of a non-entity. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even have a record contract, or didn't when we recorded this song. Anyway, the powers that be were sort of on me to find somebody like a Bob Seger or somebody with a higher profile to do a duet with. Kenny Rogers was suggested, and everybody sung a duet with Kenny Rogers. All kinds of people were suggested, and I thought, okay, I'll tell you what, you go get all those people. Paul McCartney was suggested, and Lionel Richie, all these people were suggested, and I said, okay, I'll sing with any of those people. Find them. So then the excuses started, and they couldn't. Well, the moon wasn't right for Bob Seger, and the stars weren't right for somebody else, and the mood and this. And I said, we found this song, and the next thing you know, we're in the studio, and I said, just call Dave Loggins. Never mind all those people. Just call him. So he got him on the phone, and that afternoon, and Dave Loggins was there the next morning. Here in Toronto, and we put the song down. Well, one of my favorites on the album is a Carole King tune, Time Don't Run Out on Me. Jerry Goffin and Carole King obviously are writing together again, and I don't know if they have for some time, but I'm really taken with this song because it's very different. And, you know, I've been performing for the last few months on the road, and this song, for some reason, is a showstopper. I don't know why that is. Now, I know that I like it a lot and probably perform it well because I like it so much and enjoy singing it. But it gets as much applause as You Needed Me or Snowbird, and no one's ever heard it before. And I think that's the first time that's ever happened to me. So it could be that it's one of those songs that just feels that way when you do it on stage. It may not happen on record. I'm not really sure. Again, I'm so close to it. There's a Paul Anka song. I think the finest song that Paul Anka has ever written. It's called Everything's Been Changed. I had it on an album called Annie, which it was 1971. And when I performed that live, again, it's a showstopper. It didn't ever happen on the album. But it's one of those live songs that gets to people, and that could be the case with Time Don't Run Out on Me. I hope not. No, I've never done that. I guess probably I'm thinking about the album so much and getting it into some kind of form for the album. You don't want to be performing it all that time unless somebody else grabs it. You get a good song, you want to get it on record as soon as possible. You don't want somebody grabbing it and running with it, and if you're out performing it. Now, I think that would be a great idea, to take a song and perform it on stage and then record it, but I don't think a lot of people do that. This is another one I really like on the album. There are ones that I don't like quite so much now that I've listened to it a few times, but Once You've Had It I like because I like the feel of it. And I'm a big background singer person. I've always loved background vocals, and I always maintain that producers mix them down too far in the mix. And I guess that's because I'm a singer. You know, a drummer would say that the drums aren't loud enough, and a piano player the piano. But in this song, the background vocals are featured very nicely, and it's just a fun song. Steve Dorff called me when I was in Los Angeles. I don't even remember what I was doing, but I was in for a very short time. And he called, and usually I prefer that songwriters send their songs, and I'll listen to them on tape. And then you don't have to react to them personally and hurt their feelings. But Steve Dorff I've known for a long time. He wrote I Just Fall in Love Again. He's written a few things that and he's a professional songwriter, and most of those people you can sit down and look them in the eye and say, no, it just doesn't appeal to me. It's just not there. And he's one of those guys who wants to make sure he plays it for you in person so he knows that you did actually, and he's legit. So anyway, he came to my hotel, and I'm always a little nervous in these situations because I hope it's good. And he played me. He said, this is the theme song, or going to be one of the songs from the new Burt Reynolds movie, Stick. And he said, Burt would really like you to do the song, and I've written it with this in mind and everything. So, with you in mind. And so he sat down and he played it for me, and I just went, wow, it's terrific. I mean, it's a good song. And he sent one off to Jim Ed in Nashville, and Jim Ed called me the next day, or I called him, and he said, yeah, I'd love to do it. So it was as simple as that, nothing to it. As far as doing a theme from a movie, and how important it is, the most important thing is the record. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's a theme for a movie or whatever. Most important thing is that it makes a good record. And I would never do a theme from a movie just for the sake of doing a theme from a movie. And I thought that this would make a great theme for a movie and a great record, so that's why I did it. The first song that I ever recorded that Rory Burke wrote was Shadows in the Moonlight, and since then I've done a bunch of his tunes, and he works with a lot of different people, Charlie Black and Tommy Rocco, people like that, all Nashville writers. He's written Another Sleepless Night, Little Good News, all. I would venture that I've recorded probably 8 Rory Burke tunes over the last 5 years, and this one he is collaborating with Mike Reed, and Mike Reed is a former football player and lives in Nashville and writes songs. And if indeed Mike Reed is the guy who's singing on the demo, because I know Rory can't sing very well, he's got a great singing voice too. Sometimes when you hear a real good demo like that, somebody who's got he has such a gorgeous voice, you listen to it a few more times. And I find that with Dave Logan's songs. Sometimes the song is terrible, but I like his voice so much, I listen to it over and over again. I wish I could get far enough away from this album or any other album to say that there's a new direction or anything. There might be a bit of an edge to the voice that hasn't been there before, which is a gimmick. All you have to do in order to achieve that is to take the song up one key, a tone, and it gives an edge to your voice. And there are a few more up-tempo songs on this album than the last 2 albums. There have been more up-tempo tunes, and that's an attempt to get away from solid ballads that I've been doing so much of. And however, it's difficult to find really, really good up-tempo tunes, I find anyway. Maybe it's just that people don't send them to me. But I don't hear a lot of them on the radio either, a lot of really good up-tempo tunes. So I don't know. I really can't. I find it very difficult to be objective, but I think the big difference in this album and previous albums is that there are a lot of synthesizers, and it's a progressive sound. It's what's been happening, and it's the state-of-the-art kind of thing. And now a lot of people wouldn't even hear that, so I don't know.